Okay, awesome. New day, new show.
Yeah.
This one is about memory.
Yes, so we have one artist who's taking this very old CBC show about race and she's recreating it.
Cool.
Cool. You know, like dolls that used to creep you out as a kid?
Yep.
Yeah, we have an artist who's using them as inspiration.
I know, I saw it.
And we have an artist who's taking her grandmother's story and reinterpreting it on multiple platforms.
Multiple platforms.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah, she's talented. Okay, everyone in position. And in 3, 2...
Hello and welcome to CBC Arts Exhibitionists, the show that takes you on a cross-country tour of the Canadian art scene. I'm your host, Amanda Paris. From old interviews with Neil Young to documentaries made by Glenn Gould, the CBC archives are legendary vaults filled with the rich cultural history of our country. But when artist Deanna Bowen went looking for a controversial television show that dealt with race in the 1950s, she realized it was mysteriously missing. That erasure set Deanna on a creative journey. Here she is to tell you more.
I think I was the first person to ever ask for this script off of the CBC microfiche. I'll be honest, I didn't know what I was pulling when I got to the library space. I just was caught up with, okay, let me get this document down, I'll figure out what it is later. But I'm interested to see how this plays out. I'm Deanna Bowen, a Toronto-based artist, and I'm producing The Long Doorway at Mercer Union. The Long Doorway basically is a screenplay that was written by Stanley Mann. The piece is about a black legal aid lawyer that is tasked with representing a white U of T student who nearly beats to death a black basketball star. And what's interesting to me about that piece is it's not very often that Canadian television, Canadian anything, really kind of takes up race in its own place. My great-uncle, way back in the 1950s, was one of the actors in this piece when it was produced for the CBC. He managed somehow or another to be this gay artist in my very, very religious black family, and he was loved and accepted in ways that I marvel at. This couldn't have happened in the States. This project specifically, the archetype that they had was there's really a Sidney Poitier or there's a slave role, and that's all there is. Canada worked out to be this place for innovation in a weird kind of a way.
General Motors offers an hour of distinguished television theater. General Motors presents.
A lot of that black cultural production in that year, 50, 55, 56, disappeared. The CBC thought it was too politically hot. They were getting a whole bunch of attention about these black productions, then they were getting heat from their sponsors, their funders. And so that's what I understand is what happened to all of this material.
Marker? You know I'm from the Legal Aid Society, and I suggest we get right down to it.
I brought together a cast of 5 incredibly talented black actors, and they've been assigned 2 or 3 roles, and we're basically reading it through over the course of the exhibition, kind of like a stage reading, but also a workshop to take apart the text.
We've lived a good deal longer, and we know a few things.
It's an incredibly sharp piece, and part of the reason we're doing it is because everything about the dialogue, everything about the characters is consistent with everything we're talking about now, which is maybe a little sad, but it's also a really great way to have a conversation about how long this has been going on in this country. There's definitely a time to have this conversation. We're in it right now.
I'm not prejudiced, do you hear? I don't care what color you are, it's a feeling.
I have been making work about my family for 24 years, the whole time. All of these works do the job of taking me from slavery era through my childhood, then ultimately to present day. It's how I'm making my way back home.
Every week, we introduce you to a new exhibitionist in residence, an artist on the cutting edge of animation, film, GIFs, and illustration, who we think you should know about. This week's exhibitionist in residence is Fanny Huard, and you'll be seeing her work throughout the show. I'll let Fanny tell you more.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Fanny Huard et je suis votre exhibitionniste en résidence pour cette semaine. Je fais des gifs animés, j'habite à Montréal et ici c'est le studio Paprika où je travaille. J'ai commencé à créer des personnages de toutes les couleurs, de toutes les formes à l'école avec Catherine Laporte. Puis je continue aujourd'hui sur Tumblr. Vous pouvez les voir sur fannyhuard@tumblr.com et j'espère qu'ils vous plairont. Voilà, bye!
From your old teddy bear to your favorite toy truck, the things you play with as a child can have an impact on your psychology as an adult. That correlation sparked the curiosity of Andrea Hooge. She collects the items of our childhood memories, things like vintage toys, stuffed animals, and children's books, to develop creations that are both cute and a little creepy. Take a look.
This is a doll I use in a lot of my paintings. It's called an ideal saucy walker doll, and I love these dolls. This one I like because her eyes are constantly rolling to the back of her head. Actually, they're stuck right now. This one over here is one that I had her pose for. I'm Andrea Hooge. I'm an artist based out of Vancouver. I make scratchboard illustrations and oil paintings. People describe my art as cute and creepy. I'm really drawn to children's books from the mid-century, so I tend to use a lot of images of dolls and animals and sort of childlike images. And I like to take those images and bring them over kind of like to the creepy side without it being too obviously creepy. This is a collection of little golden books I have. All of them have illustrations by Eloise Wilkin. Sometimes I look at my dolls, sometimes I look at my dollhouse or any of these toys, and it helps me come up with ideas for new pieces, or at least reminds me of the train of thought I had when I've created pieces in the past. I'm really interested in looking at childhood toys because I studied psychology in university, and I found I'm really drawn to those early childhood experiences and how they sort of shape a person. So the things that people are surrounded by when they're growing up really impact who they grow up to be. I've always been sort of interested in that process. I find that the ideas behind what Freud did, especially psychoanalysis and looking at early childhood experiences and the subconscious, that's something that inspires my work. There's a piece I did for a solo show I had in 2016. The show is called Easter Eggs, and the piece is called Inquisitive Bears. And in this image, these two bears that are kind of curious about exploring different roles that they can see themselves in. So they're holding masks of different animal faces that they're thinking about trying on. The masks for me represent different worldviews, whether that be religion or politics or even vegetarianism or anything. Just different types of ways of seeing the world and belief systems. The more work that I create, the more I find myself building a theme and more of a story. And as that body of work grows, it gets more and more exciting and more ideas come from that. Something I'm really excited about is a friend of mine and I are thinking about starting a children's book which would kind of be perfect because it's how I began, it's what I've been inspired by. And I think it would also be extra special to make one because I'm pregnant and I'm expecting a little boy, and my friend and I both can dedicate the book to our children, which is definitely something exciting.
Yeah, those creepy dolls won't give me nightmares tonight.
Sure.
Okay, so the next one is this awesome installation piece.
I wish I went to that. It looks so magical.
I wish I was there right now.
It's
Okay,
beautiful.
and in 3, 2.
Hi, I'm Zara from the workshop, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a lipstick USB key.
If trees could speak, what memories would they share? That's exactly what these next artists attempted to imagine. They created an installation in a forest that used light as the key to immerse visitors in the stories of the land. Take a look.
We are in Rouge Urban National Park, and tonight is the second night of Illuminations Human Nature. Illuminations is a participative artwork experience that brings people into the environment at Rouge to discover and explore unseen narratives of biodiversity in the park.
So when people arrive on site, they walk through a section with smoke and laser that called transition through time, so reminding the formation of the land and how it was created. And then they arrived at the Gathering Your Tools stand.
We have a lamp, we have a series of flashlights, a backpack with a speaker, and we have a map, but the map is blank. And so we have two projectors. One projector is the navigator projector, and that will project a live action map of the site, so you can see where you are in the whole grid and how you're moving. And the other projector shows content, animations, narratives based on the story of this place.
And at the end, also we have bricks.
Early in the 20th century, bricks from the Don Valley brickworks were dumped into the lake as construction debris. Over time, the bricks have been smoothed by the waves and have blended with the stony shoreline.
In my own practice, I think a lot about layers of narrative and layering within media, and this was like a whole other level. So thinking about this idea of wilderness and relating it to industry and the way that people have intervened in the landscape. And here, where it seems like that human element is so prevalent, we wanted to highlight the biodiversity. I think this is a very special place. There's a long history of human habitation here. There's a wide variety of plants and animals that still live here despite being surrounded by an urbanized environment. You think Toronto or you think Greater Toronto Area, you think urban city, but there's still nature. There's always people on the beach, there's people riding their bikes through. It's a thoroughfare. There's this presence of humans at all times, and yet there's, you know, seagulls, there's swans down the beach. It seems really basic, but it's just this idea of like, there isn't a line, there's no boundaries between wilderness and humans. There's something pretty delightful about seeing people experience it for the first time. Interaction with tools and when things light up and the unexpected, and also seeing the way people work together. I mean, everyone's kind of shy at first, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Here, let's go here next." You know, they're like this group, you know, trudging off with their lamps and lanterns. It's pretty cool.
We don't want people to think a specific way. We just want them to be aware of it and try to write the future stories.
In terms of preservation, I think thinking through a site or thinking about the different animals and plants and beings and our relationship to them, hopefully will make people think a bit more about their relationship to them and thinking about protecting them. That formation of community is really important in getting people connected to the place that they live. And doing that as a group is a really lovely way to do that.
Imagine seeing that in the forest. You're walking in the forest, all
Crazy.
this. Okay, the next one is artist who's inspired by your grandmother.
Oh, feels. I love that one.
I love this piece.
Really
Okay,
nice.
so let's get ready to feel. 3, 2.
One lifetime is filled with so many stories, it can rarely be expressed using a single artistic medium. So, Cindy Mochizuki has chosen to use several in order to transform her grandmother's experiences into images, text, sculptures, and performance. Here's Cindy to tell you more.
My name is Cindy Mochizuki, and I'm a visual artist, and I'm based out of Vancouver. I would say I tell stories in most of my projects, and I'm fascinated with memory and time and history. It's an experience that I want the audience to enter into and take away with them. I make a range of different kinds of projects, mostly using some kind of media, so photography or video or animation, sound. Some of the recurring themes in my work investigate family histories. Especially, I've been interested on some of the histories and some of the archives around the Japanese-Canadian internment. And that's a big aspect of my body of work, but also has impacted my family on my dad's side. My grandmother never spoke about that history, so I would never get it in a very linear way. It would maybe be in snippets, it would be maybe in what she didn't say, and maybe what she left behind. For me, it's like I'm a bit of a detective trying to figure out or piece together something. Compass is a multimedia performance. The characters are all iterations of my grandmother at different stages and eras of her life. In Walnut Grove as an entrepreneur and a berry farmer, post-war working in the farm industry again in Japan. In the 1960s, sending off her daughters, and then in the 1990s, watching WWF wrestling and having tea with peanut butter and saltine crackers, like all the eras. Making artwork around family history or personal stories is not always an easy process. But I think there's a great joy in, I guess, honoring somebody who maybe, her history maybe wasn't talked about, but is such a significant impact. Maybe even why I continue to make work. I'm fortunate to have my studio actually back in my childhood house that I grew up in, that we've had in our family since the 1960s. It's a strange feeling, but a good feeling, I think, to return back to that place of childhood and kind of thinking back to like stories that are told in this house, but now as an adult, I'm manifesting and working with them. I think stories are important because sometimes that's the methodology to see something that's invisible. It could be a historic traumatic event, it can be an instance, a person, you know, other things that are happening in the world, but we don't have the means to literalize or place language on it. But in the world of story, you can see it come together, and I think that's the place that's the most fascinating for me, and I think an important part of my practice. You know, when the story is done, it's spoken, and the performer is done, it's gone. You just hang on to the memory of it, and that is that.
We love finding Canadian talent to share with you. But if there's someone you think we missed, we need to know. Send us a message on Twitter or Facebook. Our handle is @CBC Arts. Thank you for joining me on this whirlwind journey of art and creativity. I'll be back again next week with even more artists from Chilliwack to Shediac. Peace.
Awesome show, way to go. I really like today's episode.
Yeah.
Art and memory and
Made me think about this old, I think it's a West African proverb that says, you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been.
That's deep.
Yeah, this is pretty deep. If you could pick one memory from your past that you could use as inspiration to create something artistic or creative, what would it be?
I don't think it'd be one memory. I think I would want to see a movie, an old-timey movie of the story of our friendship.
Aw, that's nice.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Interesting.
Ew, that's trash.
That was horrible. That was horrible. No one would watch that. No.
Zero.
No.